Mayor, the meeting is now being recorded.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. The meeting will now reconvene at 6:11 p.m. City Attorney, please provide the closed session report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The City Council is now back in open session, having met in closed session to discuss the 3 items listed on the agenda. Staff provided a report for both, but for all 3, but no reportable action was taken. This concludes my report. Thank you.
There was no objection by the City Council. I will now adjourn the closed session City Council meeting at 6:11 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the February 12th, 2024, 6 p.m. regular joint meeting of the Bell Garden City Council and Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order at 6:11 p.m. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any of the members should have a conflict of interest, please announce any items you are recusing from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard. Tonight's invocation will be given by Minister Daniel Anguiano, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Girl Scout Troop 2543.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor, City Council, Chief of Police, and City staff. Let us bow our heads as we come before God. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that you grant us. We thank you for your mercy and your goodness in this night. I present before you this body, Lord, that you may guide them and use them to discuss all matters and all topics, Father God, that will be discussed. I pray that your knowledge and wisdom be over them. I thank you for the leaders of our city, the leaders of our state, and the leaders of this wonderful nation. We ask you this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
All right, for our Pledge of Allegiance, we will have our city manager lead us.
Please rise, face the flag, place your right hand over your heart, and begin the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. City Clerk, please call roll of the members of the City Council and Successor Agency.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council and Successor Agency: Gomez.
Present.
Councilmember Pulido. Councilmember Sanchez.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena.
Present.
And Mayor Chavez.
Present. We will now move on to the presentations. City Manager, please introduce the first presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. The first presentation is from the Gateway Cities Council of Governments Energy Action Award. The City of Bell Gardens has won the gold level award in this program. Before I turn it over to our Community Development Director, Gus Romo, I'd just like to say thanks to him and to the other departments that have come to council with different actions that have helped us to attain this level. I think we're one of a few, maybe 6 to 10 cities, 8 in the Gateway COG to achieve the gold level, and this is something that specifically that Gus Romo, I know, has brought to my attention, been working on in the almost 5 years that he's been here. So I'll turn it over to Gus Romo, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you also to our Public Works Department for the help that Bernie and his staff have provided toward getting the points for this. This is every year we go forward to get this award. We start off with bronze, moved up to silver, and the last 2 years have received gold. And so we're happy to say that we continue to work with the COG and the Energy Committee to get this award once more. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Hector De La Torre from the Gateway Cities COG to do a presentation, followed by the award presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is the fun stuff. All the hard work's already happened, but we get to come and give out awards. For those of you that don't know in the public, the Gateway Cities Council of Governments is an association, a joint powers authority of the 27 cities and 11 unincorporated areas from East LA down to Long Beach. It's over 2 million people that reside in this area. If we were a city, one city, we would be the 5th largest city in America, but we're just a part of LA County. If we were a state, we would be the 38th largest state in America, but we're just a part of LA County. So it's really important to remember that together we are able to do a lot more than we can separately, individually. So we are very, very excited about this program. SoCal REN is an association of all of these cities that are trying to increase their sustainability, combat climate change, and improve their operations. Because at the end of the day, if things are more efficient within the city, you're saving money. You're saving money on your electricity bill and other bills that you're having to pay out. And so what SoCal REN does is identify opportunities for those green investments for all of our cities. We have a standard menu of things like an energy analysis or benchmarking or identifying financing options. And then we have special occasional opportunities like low to no cost EV charging stations or efficient water heaters, energy resilience plans. Right now we're working on heat pumps, which despite the name is basically HVAC, but much more efficient than what we've had in the past. And so we get these opportunities, we share them with the cities, and then whichever cities want to take us up on it, then we partner up and we make sure you get the resources. So as was mentioned, Bell Gardens is a gold member. They've been recognized with the gold status. 8 out of 27 cities got gold. So you're in the top, very top tier. And it's your second year. So you achieved it and kept at it. And so we're very, very proud of you for doing that. And this is the award for you to place wherever you put all your great awards. And again, we are very, very thankful for what you're doing. We look forward to identifying more opportunities. In fact, I was telling Mike that we are working right now on bringing these same kinds of resources to residents. And so things like EV subsidies for passenger vehicles, things like energy efficiency programs for the home, whether it's single family or multifamily. Things like air conditioners. We're actually in the process right now of getting a grant for window air conditioners, which in many cases are old and not efficient, swapping them out and having them installed properly. Because many people go to wherever they go, they buy their air conditioner, they stick it in the window, they don't really seal it properly. A lot of that air goes outside, and you know, it works more than it has to. So that is another program that we're looking forward to doing with residents. I am hoping to launch this by summer here in the Gateway COG. We will work through the cities to promote it, obviously with the residents, and they can take advantage of it. These are all free or low-cost subsidized programs, whether it's from the state, whether it's from the county, or even from our utility companies. So that will be part of the package. Look out for that coming up. But in the meantime, you've done the great work, and just want to congratulate you. Thanks. Who do I give it to? Oh, yeah, there's a video too.
And before we go forward with the video, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the great help that our planning division did. So thank you to Stephen Jones, Mona Masayeb, and Adrian Flores for their efforts.
The Gateway Cities Energy Action Awards recognizes cities for their actions to improve energy efficiency and sustainability, and we hope they also help motivate progress through some friendly competition. Congratulations to our 2023 Bronze Energy Champions. And congratulations to our 2023 Silver Energy Champions. And now introducing our 2023 Gold Energy Champion public agencies. Congrats to the City of Artesia. The city is moving towards sustainable transportation by installing a road diet and green stripe bike lanes on 166th Street in partnership with the cities of Norwalk and Cerritos to encourage a shift from automobiles by making walking and biking safer. Congrats to the City of Bell Gardens. The City of Bell Gardens is upgrading HVAC systems at 4 key locations to ensure the provision and sustainability of community resiliency centers for residents and visitors in collaboration with the Energy Resilience Action Plan. 4 locations were considered, with the Ford Park Recreation Center being the top choice of 4 potential sites. Congrats to the City of Long Beach for reaching gold for the 3rd year in a row. The City of Long Beach recently installed cool roof replacements at several park community centers. This is a different type of project the city is utilizing to address energy efficiency and sustainability. Congrats to the City of Maywood for achieving gold for the 2nd year in a row. The city recently finished replacing the roof and HVAC systems at city facilities to improve energy efficiency. Congrats to the City of Norwalk. The City of Norwalk purchased and replaced 60 energy-efficient LED walkway lights at Norwalk Park. This not only aligns with one of the city's strategic plan goals, but also supports our broader goals of creating a more resilient and eco-friendly community. Congratulations to the City of Paramount for achieving gold for 3 years in a row. The City of Paramount proactively advanced its fleet capabilities by expanding its electric vehicle infrastructure with 4 more Level 2 EV charging ports. This year's fleet expansion initiative also featured the integration of more electric-powered Nissan Leafs to replace traditional gas-powered vehicles. And congrats to the City of Pico Rivera for its 2nd year as a Gold Tier agency. The City of Pico Rivera successfully applied for and received the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant to support the Rosemead and Lakewood Boulevard Complete Corridor project. Once completed, this 26.3-mile corridor will benefit the multimodal transportation system, enhance rapid bus service, improve connectivity and expansion of the light rail system, and stimulate new transit-oriented development through the corridor. Congrats to the City of Whittier. In 2018, the City of Whittier joined the Clean Power Alliance, or CPA, to purchase renewable electrical power for residents at competitive rates. The CPA offers 3 rate options: lean power, clean power, and 100% green power. Utilizing renewable or green energy reduces greenhouse emissions for over 27,000 active residential CPA customers.
You may wonder, why did I show you? Because I want you to see what everyone else is doing, and maybe there's some ideas of some of those things that you could do here as well. So that wasn't just, well, there's competition too, but it's also so that all the cities can see what everyone else is doing. So again, thank you very much for the time. Thank you for letting me come and present. Do I just leave this here? Am I supposed to? Okay, wonderful.
This is awesome. Thank you so much to our staff. Thank you to both our directors, Gus Romo, Bernie, for all the work that they do. Everybody in Public Works, everybody in the Planning Division. It's great that our city is recognized, and I just, again, really appreciate this 2023, Gateway City's 2023 Energy Action Award, and it's Gold Energy. So, thank you again. Moving on, next presentation, City Manager.
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Chavez. The next item is a proclamation recognizing February as Black History Month. The succinct purpose is to recognize the contributions of African Americans and the African American culture and its benefit to the United States of America. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. It is a pretty lengthy proclamation, but we will get through it. City of Bell Gardens proclamation, a proclamation in honor of Black History Month. Whereas each February, National Black History Month serves as both a celebration and a powerful reminder that Black history is American history, Black culture is American culture, and Black stories are essential to the ongoing story of America. Our faults, our struggles, our progress, and our aspirations. And shining a light on Black history today is as important to understanding ourselves and growing stronger as a nation, celebrating the immeasurable contributions of Black Americans, honoring the legacies and achievements of generations past, reckoning with centuries of injustice and confronting those injustices that still fester today. And our nation was founded on an idea that all of us are created equal and deserve to be treated with equal dignity throughout our lives. And by facing the shadows of slavery and the blight of systemic racism that still diminishes our nation today and holds back our nation from reaching our full promise and potential, we recognize these tragedies openly and honestly and promise to work together as one people to deliver on America's promise of equity and dignity for all and become a stronger city and nation, a more perfect version of ourselves. And in the face of wounds and obstacles older than our nation itself, Black Americans can be seen in every part of our society today, strengthening and uplifting all America, leading industries and movements for change, serving our communities and our nation at every level, and advancing every field across the board, including arts and sciences, business and law, health and education, and many more. And let us carry forward the work to build an America that is, in the beautiful words of the poet Amanda Gorman, quote, bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jorge Chavez, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 and annually thereafter as Black History Month in the City of Bell Gardens, and urge all citizens to celebrate the diversity of the Black community while continuing our efforts to fight for equity, opportunity, and dignity to which every Black American is due in equal measure. Proclaim this 12th day of February 2024, signed Jorge Chavez, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens with the Bell Gardens City Council. Thank you. We will now be moving on to public participation on non-agenda items. Public participation is now open. City Clerk, please announce the instructions.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, subject to an overall 30-minute period, unless announced otherwise. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will first hear from speakers that are in person. We did not receive any written communications on non-agendized items, and we don't have anyone raising their hand, and we didn't receive any public comment cards.
If there is no objection by the members of the City Council, Successor Agency, I will close public participation for non-agenda items. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation on agenda items.
Thank you. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber, and we did receive, as of now, 11 written communications that have been distributed to the City Council.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call up Michelle Piñon.
Hi, nice to see everybody again. My name is Michelle Piñon. I'm a lifelong resident of Bell Gardens, graduate of Bell Gardens High School, but I'm actually here in a professional capacity. I work for the Safe Cities campaign at Standout Earth, and I'm here to testify on item number 9 in support of the proposed climate resolution policy. I'm extremely proud to see this work being done locally. In my professional capacity, I'm often working with cities that have a lot more resources and wealth at their disposal, so it was a real joy to get to work with East Yards Communities for Better Justice on this policy and acknowledge the histories and the injustices that Bell Gardens has suffered with respect to environmental justice. I'm extremely hopeful that in passing this resolution, you will actually set a standard for other Southeast LA communities that will follow, and Bell Gardens can demonstrate that they are a leader. Also very serendipitous that y'all got an award for the climate stuff too, so it seems like there's momentum there. I lastly wanted to say that I'm extremely proud of the intentionality that went into the text of the resolution. In it, you will find Bell Gardens' specific information about our history, data around the pollution burden that we have bared, and a variety of other environmental injustices that we have endured. And I hope that you will adopt this resolution today because it will send a powerful message to the residents of all ages that you take their health and future seriously, particularly in the midst of a changing climate environment. I also wanted to briefly speak on item number 11, which I was not aware of until I came in here. I will say my family has been homeowners in Bell Gardens for a long time now, but the piece of our community that is represented by the renters is instrumental, and I think they're incredibly valuable residents, and so I ask that you continue to stand by the original ordinance and protect it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, Jocelyn Del Real.
Hi, good evening, members of the council. This is Jocelyn Del Real. I'm here as a part of East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice, but also as a resident of the city of Bell Gardens. I'm here in support for the climate emergency resolution and the global, fossil fuel global proliferation. It's hard to say that word. It goes without saying, right? Our communities have seen the impacts of inaction to protect air quality, water accessibility, and disinvestments. And it doesn't take a fancy degree or agency statistics to see the overflow of trucks in our streets and emissions from the goods movement. We've also seen the fossil fuel industry that's left an imprint in our communities, from the refineries to the storage and transport. And this cannot be done at the expense of our community's health. And this resolution would be a step forward to that collective responsibility to our health and our well-being. With this resolution, we would like to see commitments to make our communities more resilient to the threats of climate change by increasing access to green spaces, access to clean water, cooling and heating centers, which was refreshing to see about this award, and supporting a just transition to cleaner energy sources while supporting job opportunities in the sector. But also wanted to bring up, the importance of community accountability, right? But we have to create an advisory to have community members assist council and staff in carrying forward these commitments in this resolution, and also to try to carry forward the environmental justice element. So we're happy to support in these efforts moving forward. And also wanted to comment on item number 11, because we can't talk about climate justice without talking about renters protections and housing justice. And so I wanted to express solidarity and support the Unión de Vecinas that are here and the more than 80% renters in our city that deserve to continue to have these protections, because a lot of them have to move out, right, because of the lack of protections. A lot of folks that are not here today to be able to testify. But I want to ask you to please uphold what was passed, right, these protections that were set in place for the more of 80% of renters in the city, some of them that are here today also. So I ask you to listen to their voices, because usually they are the ones that are left at a power imbalance compared to folks who actually own land and own property. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call next speaker Mirna Torres.
Thank you for allowing me to make my presentation. I hope you all got my package. My husband and myself are immigrants from Mexico. We came here with a dream of doing something for our children. We bought a building here in Bell Gardens in 1981. We have 6 units, of which our tenants, one apartment A, Lemus family, has lived there for 33 and a half years. Apartment B, Licona family, has lived there for 11 years. Apartment C, Espinosa family, has lived there for 8 years and 6 months. Apartment D, Velasquez family is the newest member of our family, 3 years and 4 months, because most of them buy the properties when they move. Apartment E, Barroso family, has been there 14 years and 6 months. Apartment F has been there for 25 years and 7 months. All of those people we have treated with tremendous care and love. And our rents have always been below the market since we owned that property. We got held by this. I'm not against rent control. I'm against unfair rent control. As a property owner, we have been hurt tremendously. We are on a loss on a monthly basis because we're so far below the market, the fair market. As you can see, you have the packages. We're more than 35% below. So if you only get 1.5 raise and we're 35% below, we are continuously going underwater. And like I said, I'm not against rent control, but this is so unfair. We're choking. Just this past Saturday, we had a problem of a plumbing problem with water damage that is going to turn into thousands of dollars of maintenance or repair. 5 of those thousands of dollars is our co-payment. And just owning a property, and I would like to challenge you to go by my building. If you need the address, I'm sure Daisy has it, and see what a pride used to be because now I'm sad. I go by my building and I'm sad. But that building is one of the best in Bell Gardens. And I just hope that you reconsider the way that ordinance is. I'm not saying get rid of rent control, no. Just reconsider the way it's written. I don't know how many people are hurting like I am, but I sure we are, tremendously. That's all I can say.
I'd like to call up Melody Cuevas.
My name is Melody, and I wanted to share my appreciation for the council members in doing what is right and continuously protecting your most vulnerable, being tenants in Bell Gardens. Your ordinance was a significant pass and relief to so many families in Bell Gardens. I am from Southeast Los Angeles, and unfortunately in my life, I have faced extreme housing vulnerability. Since 2020, I have moved 7 different times, and many family members of mine had to leave Southeast LA for other states because rent is way too high. And moreover, I think about how difficult the economic situation is for people who have absolutely no assets, and how we as tenants have to rely on the mercy of others. In the midst of a health crisis, where I had precancerous endometrial growth and tumors in my uterus, I lost a job from my health conditions, and with that, housing. I had to sleep on a couch, and while that was okay because at least I had a roof over my head, there have been so many times in my short 24 years of life where I had to give up so much. Just for that, a roof over my head. I did everything right. I went to an Ivy League school. I had a 4.0 GPA in high school and college, worked very hard, a lot of times over 40 hours a week, and still, I went days without eating. My mom would call me crying, saying food didn't taste good anymore, knowing that I had none. What I'm trying to say is, landlords and property owners, Do not rely on tenants to make it by. Do not rely on tenants to feed their families. Do not rely on tenants to not go hungry. They rely on them to make a profit. Overturning their ordinance would be devastating, and ultimately greed wins. If men were angels, we wouldn't need any governance. The small $156 registration fee many are rallying about is incomparable to the suffering that so many families like mine experience. Overall, many tenants can't be here to thank you, often because they're doing what they can to sustain their livelihood, whereas many in opposition are only protecting their profit. But I will say, you have already done the right thing. Do not allow the voices of the minority to corner you into something your consciousness doesn't align with. Thank you. I yield my time.
I'd like to call up Margarita Revelta.
My name is Margarita Revuelta. My husband and I, we own apartments in the city of Bell Gardens. I believe I talked to you, Mr. Chavez, the other day. I have a couple questions. I'll be very simple. First question, do you understand what we suffer as a landlords? We are the minority, she say, but we provide a house for everybody. We suffer when they don't pay the rent, when they are late, when we had to do large repairs in the property, the mortgage, the insurance. Our profit is very, very minimal. So, and you guys in the top, they put us 1.9% increase a year. I asking you to see my rents, to see everybody's rent, and then make analysis. Who is very high, who is low, and make an adjustment. Don't just put the 1.9, because I have rents, one apartment for $1,025. Two bedrooms for $1,200. It's not fair. I'm going to sell my properties. If I put on the market today, they're not gonna pay me nothing because my rents are very low. I went to repair some water heater and the plumbing. It cost me $1,500 the other day. For that apartment, the plumber goes 2 times a year at $350. If something happened and the faucets or broke something, I had to repair. It's no money for us to do any repairs and continue to live the decent life that we deserve. Second question is, I asked everybody to explain to me why we paid the fee for $156. It doesn't provide any help for me. If I go to AAA and pay a fee for $200, provide me with tow, with a lot of things. Here, I only pay $156 to help the tenants. Can you tell me what benefits I have when I pay the money? It does such a good thing to pay the fee charged to the tenants, because the help is for them, not for the landlords. I'm finished. Thank you very much.
I'd like to call up Cassandra.
Como bien saben, hemos peleado por este control de renta por casi 3 años. 3 años que se peleó para alcanzar una meta, para que no haya diferencias entre dueños e inquilinos. Al haber puesto esta ordenanza en sus manos, no se dio por darse, se dio porque se estudió 3 años. 3 años de estar haciendo comparativas con muchas ciudades para que saliera lo mejor tanto para el dueño como para el inquilino. Nunca se había dado algo así. Nuestra ciudad es pionera en esto. ¿Y por qué se dio? Porque ustedes vieron las necesidades de tanta gente, tanto desalojo, tanto acoso, tanta necesidad por esos aumentos excesivos. No había un control. Era algo que se estaba saliendo de las manos. Y no nada más aquí, sino en varias ciudades. Ciudades que eran que son prácticamente pobres, si se puede decir así, por el income que se viene dando. Y no lo digo yo, sino lo dicen los estudios. Se basan en estudios, todo eso se basó en estudios, en comparativas. Vinieron constructoras para dar ese apoyo, para definir cuánto se gastaba al año una propiedad, si era viable o no lo que se consumía en cuestión de material. Si la vivienda no fuera algo sustentable, no hubiera tantas viviendas construyéndose, porque este es un negocio lucrativo. Pero ahorita con estas leyes que se pasaron aquí, se pudo controlar ese lucro. Se pudieron defender los derechos de cientos de inquilinos, parar los desalojos. Algo que nunca se había dado. ¿Cómo una ciudad tan pequeñita, tan humilde, tan sencilla, hubiera logrado este control? Y eso fue porque cada uno de ustedes, concejales, lo vieron. Y la gente confió en ustedes y se dio. La vivienda es un derecho. Un derecho a estar dignamente, con buenas condiciones. A vivir sin excesos de costo. Sí se puede lograr algo así y se logró. ¿Por qué tener que modificar o por qué tener alterar una ley que es tan noble para su comunidad? Hay también ayudas para los dueños. Nomás es cuestión de buscarla como lo buscamos los inquilinos. Eso es todo. Gracias.
Can I call up Maria Martinez?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Martínez. Yo vengo aquí apoyando a los vecinos, la Unión de Vecinos, porque nosotros vivimos en trailers. Entonces, yo lo que digo es que sean justos, que no nos suban mucho las rentas, que sean precavidos también, y uno también tiene que hacerlo, ¿verdad? Nosotros allá donde nosotros vivimos en las trailers, el mero dueño no quiere arreglar ahí nada, se va la luz, en veces contesta, en veces no contesta, y cuando contesta es muy altanero. Nosotros que queremos es que nos apoyen, que nos ayuden. Gracias a Marcos, que él nos ha apoyado mucho, y se lo agradezco mucho de todo corazón. Y queremos que nos apoyen en todo eso. Es lo que les pido de todo corazón, porque nosotros tenemos de bajos recursos. Pero también no queremos que sean justos con los dueños, porque tampoco no nos suben la renta. Allí nos querían subir el 10%. ¿Y cómo vamos a subir el 10%? Los que sí agarran welfare está bien, y estampillas, allí les conviene. Pero uno que no agarra eso, y cuando va a agarrar uno, nunca aprueba. Y pues uno está lo que le dan a uno lo del trabajo. Lo que quiero que sepan y reaccionen, que sean justos con uno. Yo soy reitera y yo no tengo marido. A mí mis hijos me están manteniendo. No trabajo porque mis hijos no me dejan. Pero si yo trabajara, no creo que gane yo mucho a pagar un departamento muy caro, ¿verdad? Eso es todo lo que les quiero decir. Muchas gracias.
Jesús Rojas.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jesus Rojas. I come from the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, AGLA, representing rental housing providers throughout Los Angeles, Ventura, and San Bernardino counties, including Bell Gardens. The vast majority of our members are mom and pop owners with fewer than 20 units, many of who are retirees relying on their multifamily property to make ends meet during their retirement years. Any small business including rental housing providers, cannot afford to stay in business when their prices are limited to rates far below existing inflation and cost. Owners must pay ever-increasing costs to repair and maintain their older buildings, including huge increases in property insurances. Rates that we see that have gone 100 to 200% per year due to insurances leaving the state. Increases in mortgage premiums doubling in recent years. Water, 23%, trash hauling, 8%, property taxes 2%, as well as labor costs and costs for materials. We talk about water heaters, plumbing, electrical, drywall, paint, roof shingles, etc. Limiting rent increases below inflation means that mom and pop owners will be forced out of business and into selling their properties to large corporations. These corporate owners will demolish the existing older buildings in favor of new buildings with higher rents. This will cause existing renters to have to relocate, as well as causing mom and pops to lose their primary source of income at a time of life when they are no longer able to work. We need the city to recognize these small business owners as important partners in providing affordable rental housing and allowing them to increase rent by 100% CPI or 4%, whichever is greater. In addition, we need the city council to create a floor similar to Los Angeles County existing ordinance of 2% without a floor in place. Mom and pop owners will not be able to save enough funds to pay for future major expenses, such as new roof, new exterior painting, electrical panels, water line, etc. If there is no margin for them to accrue the funds to meet such expense, then they will be forced to sell their buildings as is, which when such major expenses occur. This will only encourage any new owners to demolish the building rather than spending money to restore it. Lastly, we urge the city council to reconsider the upcoming new rent registry fee of $156 per unit. This amount is extremely high compared to other similar cities, as evidenced by the staff report. Baldwin Park only charges $28 per unit, and County of Los Angeles only charges up to $90 per unit as a maximum. It is unfair that in predominantly low-income area that the city will be charging one of the highest rates for a rent registry.
Can Brooke Irvin? Before Brooke Irvin begins, as you can come to the forward to the dais, I do want to make a point of general privilege. Let the record reflect that as folks are coming up here, I notice that there's people clapping and speaking out of term. We want to listen what you are saying. We're paying attention. So please, this is just for the record that I am issuing a first warning, and which is interfering in the orderly conduct of this meeting by preventing those who are currently recognized to speak, in this case now being Brooke Irving, who are currently recognized to speak from being heard, and by interfering with the council's and the public ability to listen to the recognized speaker. This is the first warning to cease the disruptive conduct per SB 1100. If you do not stop the disruptive conduct, you may be removed from these chambers by the Sergeant at Arms. We understand this matter is very important to everyone here, but ask that you observe the rules of decorum and be respectful of those whose opinions may be different from your own. Thank you.
Hi, you guys. My name is Brooke Irvin. I'm a statewide organizer with MH Action, and I'm here to talk about you guys lifting the ordinance that is in place in Bell Gardens. And it just saddens me, to be honest with you. We're coming out of a pandemic. We're in a homelessness crisis. And all that's going to do is make that situation worse. Like, we're all people. We're standing here looking outside, and we're seeing people on the streets. We're seeing them struggling. We're seeing them going through mental issues, going through different things. And you guys are talking about going backwards. This is something that helps many people. I didn't put a script together. I don't have nothing like that. I'm just really speaking from the heart. I just think that if you guys lift that, if you guys take the percentage off, I really feel like that's a trick, because that's what's really moving the 4% in Bell Gardens. I just think that it's just gonna cause a lot of people hurt, more homeless population, more people struggling, more people on the streets. And I just feel like we don't need to go backwards like that. We need to move forward. So, yeah, so that's it. I just hope you guys find it in your heart to look at the people in this room, the community in this room, and have a little bit of grace. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to call up Jose Sanchez.
Hi everyone, my name's Jose Sanchez. I'm speaking to all you guys, in particular Francis de Leon. And the reason I'm talking to everyone is because, well, first of all, I'm from MH Action as well, Manufactured Home Action. And I'm here speaking on behalf of like the people that I actually talk to, right here, the residents of Bell Gardens, and all the struggles that they go through. Basically, before I got into my organization, I was one of those residents where a predatory landlord came, bought the land, started raising the rent, started harassing people, started, throwing people at immigration, and basically, like, I could understand it, like, like a lot of these mom and pop landlord owners, they have to make their money, and I understand that. But at the same time, there has to be some type of fairness. And when they look down on people, like if we're like non-humans, and that's very disgusting. So for that reason, I got into this organization to amplify my voice and speak on behalf of all the people I talk to. Some of these landlords don't even respect the existing law. So that's just something that, from what I hear, it's very heartbreaking because I have to go to these people's houses, I knock on their doors, and I see all the stuff that they deal with. That was me, actually. So I just want you to consider not going backwards, like what Brooke said. Let's, how about we all work as a community to work forward? I'm gonna do a little bit more case study on what's going on here, and I'll have a better comment when I come back in future meetings. So I just want to thank you for even listening, and thank you so much.
Call up the next speaker, Irma Lopez. Sorry about that.
Muy buenas tardes, personas aquí presentes, señor alcalde y asimismo autoridades, dueños de propiedad, tengan muy buenas tardes. Yo hablo en nombre de todos los dueños de aquí de Bell Gardens, que por favor remuevan el control de renta. Una de las razones es porque ustedes se han dado cuenta de la inflación y eso es absurdo que le pongan 1.9 y los que han hecho eso pues no sé por qué lo hicieron. Yo creo que los dueños tenemos voz y voto y tienen que respetar la decisión de uno. Yo estoy de acuerdo con la dueña que acaba de pasar y dijo que si están apoyando a los inquilinos, pues está bien que les cobren a ellos por unidad, porque ya que nosotros tenemos mucha carga encima y no somos millonarios, somos pobres igual que ustedes, igual que todos los inquilinos, incluso yo quiero ser también inquilina para que me protejan, porque yo de verdad he cumplido el sueño americano, he venido a trabajar, he venido a sufrir, yo no quiero que el gobierno me mantenga, pero en nuestros países dicen que aquí lo mantienen a uno, es pura mentira. Nosotros no podemos ayudar a los inquilinos, porque yo no soy gobierno, y yo creo que ustedes tampoco, y queremos suplicarles, reúnanse, platiquen y den una solución al problema, porque nosotros no estamos capacitados para ayudar a los inquilinos. Mis rentas son bien baratas y no necesito el control de renta porque yo por muchos años no les subo la renta a mis inquilinos. Valga la redundancia, mis inquilinos son como mi familia y los protejo. Y por eso yo les ruego a ustedes que por favor pónganse la mano en el corazón y vean la necesidad de los dueños. ¿Cuánto vale un guarejire? Para los que saben, ¿cuánto vale el trabajo? De verdad que los inquilinos no se dan cuenta de eso, porque la mentalidad de ellos solamente es ser inquilino. Pero uno que quiere prosperar trabaja y no se duerme y no le pide dinero al gobierno. Yo por favor le dejo en sus corazones, en sus mentes, que tomen buenas decisiones, porque esto se va a hacer feo. Por año no le subimos el alquiler a los inquilinos y ahora que dicen el control de renta, están destapando un nido de hormiga para avivarnos a que le subamos el control de renta a todos. Por favor les ruego y les suplico. Yo hablo en nombre de todos los dueños porque me han estado llamando y hemos contactado a abogados, solamente que hoy no pudo venir. Gracias, buenas noches.
Ciro Álvarez.
parece que todos hablan español, excepto el manager, el único. ¿Han escuchado a la señora americana que habló? ¿Han escuchado a la otra señora que habló en nombre de los dueños? En verdad, hay mucha gente que puede decir que se comete abusos, pero muchos de los dueños no. Nunca hemos necesitado un control de rentas. Yo no tengo ningún inquilino que esté viviendo menos de 10 años en mi propiedad. Y nunca he tenido yo abusos con nadie. Pero en verdad subieron todos los materiales, subieron los taxes, subieron las aseguranzas, subieron todo. No se trata de abusar de los inquilinos, pero tienen que ser conscientes de que todo ha subido. Han subido todo, absolutamente todo, la mano de obra. Y ustedes, cada vez que uno pide hablar con ustedes en privado, la última vez hice un requerimiento para que podamos hablar los dueños, enseñarle a ustedes los contratos y las facturas que pagamos. Acabo de pagar $14,000 por reparar 2 propiedades. Y no es justo. No es justo que ustedes pongan un 1.9. Te lo juro por Dios que no sé de dónde sacaron eso. No quiero ponerme a pelear con ustedes, discutir, pero ¿hay alguno de ustedes que tiene propiedad? Quiero saber si uno de ustedes tiene propiedad, porque hay que pagar el 3% de property taxes por año. Y ustedes suben 1.9. Las aseguranzas, la basura, el agua, la luz, represiones. No se trata de hacerle daño a los inquilinos. No lo vamos a hacer. Yo no lo quiero hacer. Pero también tiene que ser una cosa justa, una cosa que nos permita convivir con ellos. Nosotros necesitamos a los inquilinos como los inquilinos nos necesitan a nosotros. Cuando hay un problema, tenemos que repararles. Porque si no, esa propiedad no solamente el inquilino va a quejarse, la propiedad se malogra, se deteriora. Ustedes con esas leyes que han pasado, lo único que han hecho es poner la ciudad de Bell Garden en el suelo. Nadie va a querer comprar una propiedad en el precio ni siquiera que la compramos. Entonces, por favor, analicen bien eso, piensen bien, no puede ser 1.9, eso es imposible, eso no se ajusta a la realidad. Ya ustedes escucharon a la americana y escucharon a la señora latina, que es dueña, entonces por favor piensen, yo creo que ustedes no han pensado hacerlo, ustedes agarran y creen que es buena gente, como dice la señora, que la reencontró por 3 años. Nadie ha necesitado tener reencontrol para que le suban la renta de esa manera. Si es que hay una persona que es un animal de subir un inquilino de una forma que lo lastima, no es un hombre de negocios, no es un ser humano. Gracias.
Next speaker, Rogelio Rodriguez. As Rogelio Rodriguez is walking up, I do want to make a quick comment to the public. Please direct your comments to the City Council. Un recordatorio para todo el público. Por favor, dirijan sus comentarios directamente a nosotros como el concilio. Gracias.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Rogelio Rodríguez y por si alguien quiere saber dónde vivo en 5647 Clara Street por 40 años. Lo que yo no entiendo aquí es, en primer lugar, yo sé que ninguno de ustedes tiene propiedad. Con la única que tiene propiedad es la Pulido, y Pulido vive en Downey. Entonces, ustedes violaron una ley de conflicto de interés, porque ustedes, ninguno tiene casa, por lo cual ustedes no podían votar en el rent control, porque no tienen casa. Eso es un conflicto de interés. Que sea aplicable, no sé, pero ustedes están violando la ley. Lo otro, lo que están cobrando el 1.9%, me gustaría que uno de ustedes fuera propietario. Por ejemplo, a mí se me descompuso un water heater, $900. ¿Cuánto tiempo me va a tomar para juntar los $900 al 1.9%? Ayuda de ustedes no contamos, en absoluto no contamos con ustedes, porque ustedes sí han sido ciegos y han sido sordos. Se les ha dicho muchas veces por estas personas que estamos aquí, todos que estamos aquí venimos por lo mismo. Los inquilinos tienen una ventaja sobre nosotros. Nosotros para poder comprar una propiedad necesitamos posiblemente algunos hasta no comer más de frijoles o tortillas nomás para poder juntar para comprar esa casa que se le puso todas las ganas para ponerla. Y el inquilino no, el inquilino llega, renta, y si no le conviene, simplemente la abandona y la deja ahí. Ahí se la dejo, arreglenla ustedes. ¿Cuánto se toma para reparar esa propiedad? Ahora digo que me digan ustedes, ¿qué ayuda tengo yo de ustedes si me toca un inquilino de esos? Absolutamente ninguna. Ninguna ayuda tengo. Entonces, ¿a quién representan ustedes? Porque vienen aquí y se hacen de los sordos. Tuvimos una junta aquí arriba. Yo esperaba ver a uno de ustedes en esa junta. Nadie. Se mira claramente que a ustedes no les interesa ni les importa, lo únicamente que les importa es estar la posición ahí para mostrar que son representantes. Pero ¿representantes de quién? ¿O de quién? Porque en verdad no están representando a nadie. Viene la gente, se queja y les dice esto y esto y lo otro, y ustedes no toman ninguna solución. Lo único que hacen es ponerla peor. Eso es lo que están haciendo. Espero que con esto que están diciendo aquí, ahora nos den algo de favoritismo digo, en mitades, porque no lo vamos a tener, nosotros sabemos bien eso. ¿Quién de ustedes ahorita en la actualidad ha tratado de comprar una casa? Ninguno, porque ninguno califica. Somos pocos los que califican para hacer o comprar una unidad ahorita. Sin embargo, se la ponen muy fácil como si así fuera, y no lo es.
María Robles. María Robles. Next speaker, Norma Cabral.
Hello, council members. I am with the Renters Control as well. The letter we received from the $156, and you mentioned half of the amount we pass on to our renters. I gave a copy of a letter to every single tenant. Every single tenant told me they were not aware of a Renters Control. Every tenant was upset. Why should they pay the $78, which is half of the $156? And they said if they're not receiving any benefit out of this, and the contract is between the landlord and the tenant, why should they pay and we reimburse the city council members, the city, from the letter you sent over? So we were put in a position very uncomfortable with our tenants. We've never had a problem with them, so they're very, very upset with that from the beginning. We've had tenants that have lived there over 20 years, so we haven't raised their rents as well. They have very low rents. Like many of us, $1,000 is what they pay. The renters that spoke here, they might pay more, but it's not fair if their landlord charges them very high rents that we get penalized for it. If one messes up the whole city and causing this rent control, all the others that have lower rent control, I don't think it's fair that we get penalized as well. I understand if you want to do a rent control and put a cap for others to not go over, fine with that. But us who charge less rents, at least let us maintain some kind of, be able to raise something to maintain our expenses as well. We pay taxes, we pay, just like everyone else, all the other utilities and expenses. We've had many things that we've had to maintain and fix our building for the renters to be safe. But we don't get also financial help. There is no financial help, as you're all aware. Renters may get financial help. I'm not sure, I'm not aware of it, but us as landlords, we do not. So for that reason, I ask you, one, if you can withdraw the $156, this way we don't have to deal with that interaction, with that problem with our tenants, charging them. Second, in the letter it said we have to provide personal information from our tenants, their phone number, their name, their other information. Many of our tenants were very uncomfortable with that. They were questioning us. They don't want any fraud being committed. They don't want their personal information. We've told them if you have a problem with it, go with the city. So I want to inform you because you're causing some problems with us where we have no choice but to pass it on to you. So I want you to be aware that when they're very uncomfortable providing the information, they're very uncomfortable paying that amount. They're very low income. They barely make it with their Social Security. They barely make it with their bills. I understand that for that reason, we've kept our rents very low. Thank you.
Lilia Chavez.
Muy buenas tardes, miembros del concilio. Andamos vivos todavía. El motivo de estar aquí este día es por la misma razón que vinimos varios inquilinos que vivimos en esta ciudad. Lo que yo estaba mirando es por qué tienen que hacer modificaciones a una ordenanza al cual ya está firmada y ya está hecha y ya se ganó una ordenanza y un control de renta, que fue una lucha de 2 largos años que anduvimos haciendo flyers, hablando con las personas. Con esta ordenanza se han logrado tantas cosas y tantas cosas buenas, porque hay familias que hoy duermen felices, duermen contentas. ¿Por qué? Porque no están con la opresión, no están viviendo con ese miedo, con ese temor de que los van a desalojar, de que les van a llegar a tocar la puerta por X razón. No tienen por qué modificar algo que ya está hecho, algo que ya se ganó. Muchachos, piensen bien. No sé de quién fue la idea, pero piensen bien lo que ustedes están haciendo, porque hay muchas familias. No estoy hablando nada más de familias normales, así como nosotros, que no tienen ninguna deshabilidad. Hay familias que tienen hijos con deshabilidades, personas mayores de edad, en las cuales tienen una necesidad grande. Hay personas que se mantienen del seguro y ni aún así les alcanza para pagar su renta. Y si ustedes modifican eso, ¿qué es lo que va a pasar? Que van a echar al suelo, van a echar al piso todo un trabajo que ya hemos ganado a la comunidad. Piensen bien en lo que van a hacer. De quien haya venido la idea, piénsenlo bien, porque son familias. Si ustedes no quieren mirar más familias en las calles, por favor, escuchen, porque somos comunidad. Y si en un tiempo estuvimos levantados para luchar por este control de renta, nos vamos a volver a levantar. Eso sí, nos van a mirar en la misma lucha, así nos llevemos otros 2 largos años, pero nosotros nos vamos a levantar. Muchas gracias.
Danny Robles. Danny Robles. Abraham Rios.
Hello, my name is Abraham Rios. I'm here representing my parents and other small landowners. We're here to express how unfair and how biased these ordinances are to small landowners and do not benefit us at all. I'll be talking from the cover sheet, agenda report, item 11, from the city manager to the city council members. Under the background and discussion, if we go under number 1, it says limit the annual rent increase to 15% of the change in the CPI, or 4%, which is the ceiling, which is a cap. If you continue reading, it says no floor. The fact that there is no floor is completely unacceptable and unfair to small business owners, and that needs to be addressed exponentially. Number 2, waive the rental registration fee. Again, how everybody was saying, this is pretty much self-explanatory. It's another unnecessary expense for landowners that realistically do not benefit landowners at all. If we continue reading for a little lower, fiscal year 2024, small area FMRs for Bell Gardens, 2-bedroom, is registered as 2,090. So with this, it's using a very broad and general brush to paint something that is more complicated than that. As we know, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath is not the same as a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Or a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with a patio is not the same as a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with nothing. So we're using a broad brush to generalize something that's way more complicated than that. And if we're using the 80% threshold, let's use the same example for the 2-bedroom. If somebody is paying $1,673, which is only $1 over the threshold, it'll take them 13 years to get not to the 2,090, but to 2,069 with 63 cents. It's not only until year 14 where they exceed paying the 2,090, and that's completely unacceptable. And if we go over the property owner's cost increases, as we could see and how everybody else has pointed out, water has gone up 23%. Trash has gone up 8%. And property taxes, you guys have it here as 2% annually. And this doesn't even cover the repairs, the labor costs, the materials, the maintenance, the insurance. The only protection, quote unquote, that we have is that we could pass 50% over to the tenant, but it's capped at a 5%, which realistically is no help for us at all. And one final thing that we need to stop doing is we need to stop vilifying what a landowner is. A lot of us, like my parents, are immigrants who came here, who have worked hard. We all have 9-to-5 jobs. It's not like we're millionaires over here and we just want to raise rents for everybody else. We're just trying to do what's right and raise something that has an actual standard and not, we're not trying to take advantage of anybody, but we need to do what's right for us to stay afloat as well. Again, we should absolutely look this over because it has no benefit to landowners at all. Thank you.
Raúl Navarez. Raúl Navarez. Gladys Velázquez. Gladys Velázquez.
I didn't intend on speaking tonight, but I am. And it seems like I've listened to everybody here, tenant advocates and landlords and everything. And it seems like it's all about fairness. So inflation has eaten up a lot of things. And it's obvious that a lot of tenants here don't know what anything really costs. They've never had to pay for a roof, a window, a carpet, tile, anything, ever. They've never paid for anything. They just pay the rent, and that's it. And in Bell Gardens, we're very fortunate because they pay less than anyone else. I'm a landlord here. I charge $1,200 for 2 bedrooms. You're not going to get that anywhere. So this really hurts me and hurts a lot of tenants here. There's a lady here in a white parka, and I'm not going to address her. She obviously has no clue what anything costs. And from what I took notes, none of the tenants know what anything costs. But those of us that are small mom and pop landlords know what everything costs. And we're very fair with our people. No one wants to overcharge or anything like that. So it's all about fairness. The rent control here is not fair to small mom and pop landlords, who's probably everybody here. I haven't seen, any big landlord here. And so I guess what I'm asking for you guys to do is be fair. You know what you know what some things cost. You know what food, inflation on everything is. I'd bet that 90% of everyone in this room, including you guys, don't know what a water heater costs or anything else. And we gladly put them in when we need it or anything else. But you got to be fair because $1,200 for a 2-bedroom, you go anywhere else, you're not going to get that. We'll do it, but once you start putting controls on everything, then it screws everything up for everybody. So it's all about fairness. Be fair to small and pop landlords who I'm sure everyone behind me wants to be at some point. I'm sure they want to be that at some point. And the young gentleman who spoke maybe 2 or 3 before me, he's right on the money. I think he spoke for his parents. And so it's all about fairness. Be fair to landlords, mom and pops, who's 90% of everyone in this town, and tenants too, even the ones we can't get out who are freaking nightmares for everyone else.
Gladys Velázquez. Gladys Velázquez.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gladys Velázquez. Es la primera vez que asisto a eso y pues veo 2 caras de la moneda. Me pongo en partes casi iguales porque yo también estoy rentando. La verdad, yo no estoy pagando mucho de renta. A mí me gusta vivir bien, donde yo rento, yo puse mi alfombra, puse mis cosas nuevas porque yo no quiero que me suban mi renta. No hablo con el dueño porque yo cambio mi tasa, yo compro todo por lo mismo, porque no quiero que me suban renta. Me pongo en lugar de todos también porque yo estuve trabajando en una empresa por 17 años donde yo estaba ganando no mucho, me tuve que salir, los pagos, ustedes saben que uno no gana mucho y también la gasolina, los huevos, todo está subiendo y sí me pongo en cuestión de todas las personas también que están pagando porque yo cambié mi taza, cambié mi piso, cambié mi alfombra, cambié todo eso y eso lo estoy pagando yo. Y me pongo en nombre de todos, pero también que vean las dos caras. Parte de nosotros los inquilinos y también los que son propietarios, porque también les ha costado tener lo que tienen. Y es todo.
Guadalupe Medina Urias.
Buenas tardes a todos. También es la primera vez que vengo, no sabía que iba a hablar. Estaba escuchando las dos versiones. Mi corazón está... Ok. Yo también soy inquilina. Soy mamá soltera. Tengo un buen trabajo. Pero si le suben más, voy a ser homeless. Entonces, yo también escuché al lado de los propietarios. No sé qué se puede hacer para ayudarlos y ayudarnos. Porque si suben un poco más a lo que yo estoy rentando, sería homeless y yo no quiero ser homeless. Soy mamá soltera, como les digo, todo ha subido también para nosotros, las mamás. Estoy hablando para mí como mamá soltera. No me alcanza muchas veces, tengo que pedir prestado, teniendo un trabajo. Entonces, no sé si se pongan, ¿cómo podrían ustedes ayudarnos también a los dos? Porque no quiero hablar tampoco de los landlords y tampoco que no sean ayudados. Entonces, no sé cómo puede ser esas dos partes, porque veo a los landlords hablando solamente de ellos y los inquilinos nada más de ellos. Yo quiero, ¿cómo pueden ayudarnos a las dos partes? No lo sé. Y muchas gracias a ustedes por siempre querer ayudar a toda nuestra comunidad. Gracias.
Raúl Godínez.
Good evening, honorable council members. I am currently a landlord in the city of Bell Gardens, and I would like to say currently because I am thinking of completely moving out of this, being a landlord anyways. The current formula that you guys have of 50% of the CPI in itself already tells you that something's off, because if the CPI which is a consumer price index, which is already manipulated by the federal government to reflect a lower inflation rate than what it is in order to attract investments from foreign nations. In the rental housing, repairs are extremely expensive now. It's no longer where a plumber comes because of for whatever reason, it's no longer $150. They pretty much charge whatever they feel like charging. There's a shortage of labor in a lot of fields. Unfortunately for us, one of them is electricians, roofers, plumbers. They are pretty much we're at their mercy now. The rent control is here, I understand that, and it's here to stay. I have no problem with it. We have to find a middle ground, something that's fair for landlords and something that's fair for the tenants. I understand that there's a lot of abusive landlords out there. That's not the case with a lot of also mom and pop landlords. I take care of my tenants, I take care of my buildings, but it is getting extremely difficult to take care of these buildings now, because the same way that there's good tenants, there's also very bad, that there's good tenants and good landlords, there's also bad landlords and bad tenants that do not take care of your property. They clog up the plumbing, create disasters in the building, make holes in the walls, don't keep their apartments clean. It goes both ways. It's not just one way. something that nobody talks about here, and you guys could Google this. Buildings that have 5 and above units, there is no 30-year loan. It does not exist. Most of those loans are either 3 or 5 years fixed. I will give you an example on one of the loans that I have. $750,000. I had it at a 3.8%. My 5 years came up 2 months ago. The previous payment, including taxes, was $5,100. It went up to $7,673, 1 month to the next. And that's pretty much common throughout the whole country. There is no fixed interest rate on anything above 4 units. It does not exist in the banking system. So that alone will put a landlord in a really, really bad position on a building with rent control, where you're not even recuperating the CPI. The larger cities in LA, for the lady that earlier said that there was a lot of studies made, LA City average 3%, LA County 4% for this year. Something's
Doris Serrano.
Muy buenas tardes. Yo vengo aquí también como inquilina y como residente de aquí de Bell Gardens. Vengo también a apoyar mi causa, ¿no? Quiero decirles que vengo a pedirles, por favor, que reconsideren esto y que tomen en cuenta la crisis que estamos teniendo de vivienda ahora mismo. No se quieran convertir en una ciudad más de Los Ángeles, en donde la gente tenga que acampar afuera de sus casas. La señora que acaba de expresarse aquí, a mí me llegó a mi corazón, y yo les pido, por favor, que tengamos un poquito de empatía. Cuando nosotros ya llegamos a un nivel de comodidad, se nos olvidan de los que están allá abajo y se nos olvidan de los que están pasando una necesidad. Esa señora está pidiendo con exclamación ayuda, y está siendo justa porque está diciendo ayúdennos tanto a propietarios como también a inquilinos, porque si me suben un poquito más la renta, yo voy a llegar a ser homeless. Bueno, yo le quiero contar también a ustedes que yo también llegué a ser homeless y he sido víctima de propietarios sin escrúpulos y propietarios que no han tenido el corazón y despiadadamente me han sacado, no teniendo la razón. Propietarios que se negaron a darnos a nosotros recibo por cada pago que hacíamos, nos exigían pagar en cash para poder ellos hacer sus fechorías cuando ellos quisieran, y si nos querían aumentar la renta y nosotros no aceptábamos, entonces nos sacaban. Esa señora fue capaz de ir a acusarme con un juez y decir que yo no había pagado por 3 meses mi renta cuando era mentira, y Dios lo sabe. Yo tenía incluso no solamente depósito, yo tenía 2 meses de adelantado que yo le había dado, más el mes que yo le pagué cuando yo iba entrando. Esa señora fue hasta incluso al punto de quererme amenazar, de golpearme en la estación que está cerca de la Watcher y la Eastern. Quería pegarme, esa señora. Por otra parte, también fui víctima de otro inquilino, y no ese es el caso, pero vamos a que yo vengo a pedirles a ustedes que reconsideren esto, por favor, mantengan el control de renta, ¿verdad? No somos familias millonarias. Yo entiendo que los propietarios que están aquí pidiendo que por favor también ustedes consideren y fallen a su favor de ellos, es porque también entendemos la crisis que estamos pasando ahorita de la inflación. Y sí es cierto, pero seamos realistas, muchos de ellos están heredando propiedades y estas propiedades ya estaban pagas. Nosotros no somos responsables de que ellos vayan a refinanciar, saquen préstamos y tengan que estar repagando esa propiedad. Entonces se la quieren cargar ¿a quiénes? A los inquilinos. Entonces no es justo que nos vengan a cargar a nosotros. Otra cosa.
Martín Hernández. Martín Hernández.
Hola, mi nombre es Martín Hernández. Yo hoy estoy aquí porque yo creo, no sé si decir sí o no, pero yo sé que el 1% es muy bajo, pero hay mucha gente como yo y mi mamá. Nosotros solamente somos dos. Yo estoy estudiando ahorita en Cal State Domínguez y mi mamá trabaja. Yo también trabajo. Nosotros estamos pagando ahorita 1,250 por una recámara. Una recámara. Y este rentero, el que yo vivo, donde yo vivo, le hemos dicho que los cambie el piso, que los cambie todo. No quiere. Hasta yo le dije, ¿sabes qué? De mi propio dinero, de donde yo trabajo, le dijo, ¿sabes qué? Vamos mitad mitad. Y me dijo que todavía que no, al rentero. Porque yo trabajo, yo sé cuánto cuesta el material. Yo trabajo en el Pro de Home Depot y si quieren, yo puedo, a mucha gente se está quejando que aquí, que el precio y todo. Aquí nunca, nadie paga cash aquí, todo es por pagos. Es por todo, ahí en el Home Depot del Pro, yo soy el supervisor del Pro. Hay un plan donde tú puedes comprar lo que tú quieras y hay 12 meses sin interés. 12 meses sin interés, es bastante tiempo. Y también para los homeowners que quieren invertir, compran tallo, no se estén quejando porque eso nomás invierte su propiedad y su propiedad sube. No es dinero tirado a la basura para los owners de la propiedad. So, lo que yo quiero entender, yo sé que 1% es poco, pero que no haga mucho y que no haga poquito. Yo sé que como hay uno que mencionó que paga 1,200 por 2 recámaras, dije, wow, that's a little bit, es poquito, pero de todos modos, nomás que sea parejo. Si quieren del 1% que lo suban a un poquito más, pero que sea parejo, es nomás lo que pido. Pero otra cosa, eso es lo que quería decir y la verdad es duro para mí y mi mamá que solamente vivimos, que yo estoy estudiando y yo estoy estudiando para Business Administration, which I get it, it's low, it's taxes, everything is a lot, it's hard. But just know that not all the people are like the same. There's a lot of differences right here in Barnes with the landlords. But like I said, just make it even. Make it even. If you guys want to change that, make it even. Don't let the landowners que se aprovechen, about the situation. And that's all I want to say. Just make it even. And thank you.
Thank you for that. City Clerk, please proceed with comments online.
Thank you. Caller or Zoom ID with the name Nicholas Patiño Villalpando. If you would please select the microphone icon. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment. Nicholas?
One moment. Can you hear me?
Yes, we could hear you now.
Oh,
You may
perfect.
proceed.
Perfect. Hello. Good afternoon, City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Nicolas Cordova Villalpando, and I'm a program specialist with Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. I am a resident of Southgate, right? And I'm deeply invested in the work of tenant right protections. I would like to make a comment in favor of the Rent Stabilization and Tenant Eviction Protection Ordinance number 925. The ordinance came into effect October 12, 2022, and was a huge victory for residents in Bell Gardens and has been recognized nationally as a victory that can turn the tide in LA County's housing crisis. However, community organizers who fought hard for this ordinance report that landlords are not complying with the law, that many tenants are facing harassment, and tenants have been taking on the unjust burden of constantly having to push for compliance. Landlords have also been attending the city council meetings to call for change or elimination of the ordinance. I ask for the city of Bell Gardens Council to stand in support of the ordinance number 925 because it protects the majority of your constituents. Almost 80% of your constituents are tenants, right? That is a grand majority, right? And this is in a city with one of the lowest median incomes of the county at 40,000 K, right? Of which the population is 28% facing poverty. On the other hand, the Southern California Associations of Governments reports that 64% of households are burdened by rent, right? I don't know what landlords here are talking about. Oh, we're not charging people rent, as much, not to market, right? But when you see that over 64% of households are burdened by rent, not to talk about the ones that pay more than 50%, which is 30% of the household, right? We're heavily burdened in rent in LA County. Bell Gardens, right, it stood up for its renters. Also, right, like if people get displaced from Bell Gardens, it's really hard for them to come back. If we don't have the tenants, right, if we don't have our community here present to work with us and to even, enjoy, right, the fruits of, for example, like, your green initiative, right?
30
Like,
seconds
it's
left.
not, all right, thank you. It's not sustainable to have people displaced, right? If people get displaced, they have to live farther from where they work, okay? And that's just creates a lot more pollution, right? And in general, right, the community suffers when people get displaced. It changes it completely,
10 seconds
gentrifies it.
left.
All right, and I think just want you to consider that really heavily, especially because your constituents need it and they want it.
Thank you.
Thank
Your time is up. Zoom ID, Linda Castellanos, if you would please select the microphone icon to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You may proceed with your
Okay.
comment.
Thank you. First, I want to really put it out there that this is very difficult for all the volunteers sitting in front of us, the council members. And I want to really tell you that I really feel how difficult this can be with you. And I could really see that it could be very emotional as I'm listening to all the speakers. And I get that. It is emotional. But the truth of it all is that landlords are not responsible for the lives of the tenants. We are not. I also started from nothing, and I'm at a point of really owning real estate, but it came from decisions I made. I'm not saying everybody had this ability. However, I also feel that having this low rent control fee that you're putting out there is really going to come back and really make Bell Gardens the lowest income area, not only financially, but physically. All of you will eventually be landlords because you're leaders. That's why you're sitting there. And you need to understand that fairness is part of leadership and consider both sides. I don't understand how this was acceptable. The numbers don't make sense. The numbers don't lie. And I really hope that you can find it in yourselves to see your future as landlords and see if this is fair or not. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Zoom ID, Jonathan Jager, if you would please select the microphone icon. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment. Jonathan Jager, you may proceed with your comment. You successfully unmuted yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Jonathan? It looks like we lost. We can't hear you now. Jonathan, you've successfully unmuted yourself. We just can't hear you.
Maybe we can go to our next speaker and then we'll try him again after.
Zoom ID, Bell Gardens resident, if you would please announce your name for the record and proceed with your comment.
Good evening. My name is Omar, and I'm a Bell Gardens resident and property owner. I'd like to address you guys first by straight off saying that I am against the rent ordinance. The state of California already had a statewide rent control, and I'm for tenant rights. Just to get that out of the way. But what the Bell Gardens rent control ordinance did was definitely was one-sided.
Sorry, it looks like you muted yourself.
Oh, hello. Yes, the loopholes that property owners now have to go through is extremely unfair. Even from the registration fees, that if you compare those to nearby cities, is extremely high. Baldwin Park, $28. City of LA, 90. I don't know who came up with the fees for Bell Gardens, but it doesn't resonate with the local community. And not only that, but just the unfairness of the extremities you guys have put on rental property owners. A lot of the properties in Bell Gardens, they're older properties, so they need a lot of maintenance. We all know that inflation has gone up, prices on everything has gone up, from labor to material, to even the bills. You know, the water, the trash has gone up in the city, and to hit the small mom and pop property owners in Bell Gardens, because that's what the majority of us are. It was another pandemic, basically. You know, right when these ordinance talks started happening, I had a meeting with property owners, and even then there was a realtor who was already targeting us. Hey, if you guys are ready to sell, let us know. Rent control is not good for you guys. Your property's not going to be worth much. We will buy your properties cash. We became targets. I get calls all the time of people trying to lowball me for my property. You know, investors trying to come in here. This is not mom and pop. These are investors trying to come in here and lowball me for my property, because you guys have made it hard to be a property owner in Bell Gardens. This is just going to affect the
30
the way
seconds left.
properties. Yes. This is just going to affect the way properties look. It's not going to give property owners much money at that to even fix stuff, around. This is going to start looking like Compton, South Central, and Watts, and that's not what we want out here. We would like to take pride in our property.
10 seconds left.
And to do that, we also need to help out the property owners. We need to be fair. We're for tenants' rights, but we also
Thank you. Your time is
have
up.
rights of property owners in mind. Thank you.
Zoom ID Moto E, if you would please select the microphone icon to unmute yourself and announce your name for the record.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Catalina. Les doy las gracias por darme la oportunidad de participar en este foro. Vivo en Bell Gardens. He estado escuchando las opiniones de cada uno de los dos partes del foro, tanto inquilinos como propietarios. Y lo único que yo veo es que si hay un aumento de renta, tiene que haber un aumento de salario. Los salarios están por los suelos. Y si suben los salarios, todo sube. Apenas acaban de subir al 15% de salario de la hora del mínimo, y el costo de la carne sube a lo que vale la hora de trabajo. Entonces, tenemos que hacer un ajuste, no nada más en el pago de renta, sino que todo tiene que ser un equilibrio, ¿sí? Un equilibrio, ¿por qué? Porque hay unas personas que ganan lo suficiente como para poder pagar bien sus rentas, y la mayoría de las personas trabajadoras no ganan lo suficiente para tener esa oportunidad de pagar su renta. Muchos padres de familia tienen que trabajar doble turno, por eso a veces no pueden participar en estos foros de la comunidad. Y también sobre una ley que en el año 1988 se añadió la categoría de discapacidad a la ley de vivienda justa, con una de los casos protegidas. Ahorita también está en las nuevas elecciones una nueva propuesta de que si es una ley de que toda la gente tenga un derecho de vivienda, y esto va a venir en las votaciones. Claro que tenemos que vivir dignamente. Eso ahorita no es nada más de Bell Gardens, es de todo el área de Los Ángeles que se están quejando por la misma situación de viviendas, de que mucha gente está viviendo en las calles, mucha gente está viviendo por 4 o 5 años o más de 5 años en casas de campaña. Eso es lamentablemente muy triste. Gracias por mi participación. Eso es mi opinión.
Gracias. Zoom ID identified as iPhone. If you would please select the unmute feature and announce your name for the record. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment if you would please announce your name for the record. It looks like we cannot hear that one. I will try to go back to Jonathan. If you would please select the microphone icon.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. You may proceed with your comment. Please announce your name for the record.
Great. My name is Jonathan Yeager. I'm speaking on item 11. I'm an attorney at Public Counsel. I was formerly at the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, where I had the honor of working with the city of Bell Gardens to develop the Rent Stabilization and Tenant Eviction Protections Ordinance. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm calling in to let you know that your ordinance has been working. It is balancing the needs of tenants and landlords and keeping people housed affordably. It would be a mistake to raise the baseline permitted rent increase in section 5.62.40. The current formula of 50% of inflation with a maximum cap of 4% correctly balances the needs of landlords while protecting vulnerable tenants. It is well documented that wages do not rise or fall with inflation in the short term or the long term. That means that even when inflation rises, vulnerable tenants are in no better position to pay higher rents. A person's wages do often rise over time, but not in any way that tracks broader economic activity. The ordinance already has 3 different mechanisms if the current rent cap isn't sufficient for a landlord. First, Section 50 grants the landlord a greater rent increase if the rent for the unit is more than 80% below fair market rent in Bell Gardens. Second, if the reason the rent cap isn't sufficient is due to a large capital expenditure, Section 60 allows the landlord to pass through those costs on top of the rent. And last, if the current rent cap isn't sufficient for any other reason, Section 70 lets the landlord petition for rent adjustment for any reason. So not only does the ordinance already have the ability for a landlord to request a higher rent increase, it specifically calls out the 2 reasons most cited by landlords tonight for needing a higher rent increase and provides unique processes for getting those. This ordinance was very thoughtfully written to balance both sides. The ordinance also already allows landlords to pass through 50% of the registration fee to tenants. The registration fee benefits both landlords and tenants by paying for the infrastructure that, for example, allows landlords to request those higher rent increases. Based on Bell Gardens' leadership on this issue, LA City and LA County have both begun the process of studying how their baseline rent increase limits can better meet the needs of their tenants, including potentially lowering their formulas closer to what Bell Gardens is doing. And the city of Oakland in the Bay Area already has a threshold of 60% of CPI with a maximum cap of 3%. So thank you so much for the time. I implore you to not change anything about your ordinance because it is doing a remarkable job of making sure that Bell Gardens residents are not unjustly displaced from their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last comment provided.
If there's no objection by the members, I will close public participation. We will now move on to city manager report. City manager, will you please give your report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Chavez. I'd just like to mention a couple of items that we've had. Our Neighborhood Watch had a meeting at Ross Hall at 6:30 p.m. On January 30th. They had a special presentation from Dispatch. They're going to have another Neighborhood Watch meeting coming up on Wednesday, February 21st. This one's in the morning at 9 a.m. There'll be a presentation from our parking enforcement group. So that one should be interesting. I'd like to mention next Monday is President's Day, so City Hall and some city offices will be closed. But obviously our police department, rec community services, public works, most of the executive management team in some way, shape, or form will be working that day. So if residents need service, they'll be able to be taken care of. Particularly maybe of interest of some of the participants here. Every month we host a workshop for property owners regarding the rent stabilization ordinance. Also every month we host a tenant workshop. These are in person. They're here at City Hall. The one for property owners will be February 20th. The one for tenants will be February 21st. And always if there's a question, you can come in person, you can email, you can call, you can download the city's mobile app on Apple or for Samsung users and ask any question or report anything that you would like to report. We're here to help. Also want to mention we've tried to increase the number of events and utilization of the skate park. Obviously a lot of residents choose to use that facility. We had our first Punk at the Park event on Friday, February 2nd, right in between Thursday deluge of rain and then a Saturday, Sunday start of another deluge of rain with a live DJ. That's 6 to 8 p.m. So the first of every month we will have this event at the skate park. Also want to mention every Friday we have a resident art and yard sale at Veterans Park from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We did have to cancel one during the rain, but otherwise that event is up and running. And I would like to just finish with a couple things that are coming up with our parks. We just reopened the playground at Veterans Park after a couple of months. There was some equipment and service damage that took a while to get some specialized equipment and contractors out to get that fixed. So that's up and running just in time for kids to get back outside between rainstorms. Also want to mention that the new LED lights will be going in sometime in the next 30 to 60 days at Ford Park. And then also in the 60 or 90 day range, we'll have new playground equipment, picnic tables, benches, and trash receptacles at Asmus and Hannon Park. So Veterans Park, Ford Park, Asmus Park, Hannon Park, all receiving upgrades prior to spring and hopefully the El Nino calming down so we can have a nice summer. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that, City Manager. We will now move on to the consent calendar. Does any member of the council, successor agency wish to pull an item for separate discussion? Seeing none, may I entertain a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Approve items 1 through 9. Is that correct with the motion? Okay. All right, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Barcena and a second by Councilwoman Gomez. City Clerk, please conduct the roll call.
Yes, thank you. Members of the council and successor agency Gomez?
Yes.
Councilmember Pulido is still absent. Councilmember Sanchez?
Yes, items 1 through 9. Yes for items 1 through 8, no on 9.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Barcena?
Yes.
And Mayor Chavez?
Yes. Thank you so much. We will now before we begin the discussion items, we do want to take a 5-minute recess and we'll be resuming at 8:01 p.m. Thank you. All right, all right, all right. We're gonna start reconvene the meeting back at 8:05 p.m. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 10?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Chavez. This item is the local commission's appointment list.
Can everyone please lower their voice? We are now reconvening the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your cooperation. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 10?
Thanks again, Mayor Chavez. This item is the local commission's appointment list. This is a regular item. Staff recommends that the council please review the commission's appointment list and by motion remove commissioners and/or make appointments to the posted vacancies. Thank you, Mayor.
Does any member of the council have any changes to make? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 11. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 11?
Thanks again, Mayor Chavez. This item is an update on the city's rent stabilization and tenant eviction protections ordinance. This was an item that was requested at the first meeting in January. Our community development director and his staff have put together a presentation to provide an update for the council as to how things are going with this ordinance. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gus Romo, our community development director. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I was going to have our housing specialist, Ms. Veronica Jaramillo, who worked very hard on this, present, but unfortunately she lost her voice rooting for the 49ers.
I'm in that as well. I went through that too. Tough loss. Overtime too, right?
Yep. So, Mayor, members of the City Council, I know this is has become a very sensitive topic, and there's people on both sides of the equation that are expressing their concerns to you tonight. Just to give you a little bit of background, and I'm sure everybody's already read this into the report, the City Council went through an extensive process of putting together an ad hoc committee. This was back in 2019. That ad hoc committee looked at various professionals in the field. They had workshops, in fact, 4 workshops with the public, both in English and Spanish. And they directed staff to put together an ordinance, along with our city attorney, with the help of various nonprofit organizations as well. We looked at various ordinances throughout, and the city then was presented this ordinance, and on August 22nd, the first reading happened. September 12th of 2022, the second reading, and the ordinance was adopted. 30 days later, on October 12th, the ordinance became effective. Shortly after that, City Council had to do a cost analysis. That was required to be able to implement the ordinance. As part of the recommendation, 2 options for rent increase limits were provided by staff. City Council decided on an alternative option as follows. Limit the annual rent increase to 50% of the change in the consumer price index, or 4%, whichever is less. No minimum floor. Now keep in mind, back then the inflation was a bit high. It was a little over 8%, so the maximum at the time was 4%. And I'll get a little bit more into that. The second modification the City Council did is they added a waiver to the rental registry fee for any owners of residential rental property that had no more than 4 dwelling units, and they actually occupied one of the 4 rental units. So these are considered the small mom and pop landlords. So currently, as I was saying, at the time the ordinance was adopted, U.S. inflation was at a record high, 8.9% or 9% as we rounded it off. And since then, of course, inflation has declined. LA area CPI as of December 2023 was at 3.5. So if you look at, initially we had the 4% increase because of that 8% inflation. In 2023, when it went down to 3.8%, 50% of that is 1.9%, and that's what a lot of the landlords are having issue with. Now, because the ordinance does not establish a minimum rent increase or a floor, what is called, the annual increase could fall even lower should CPI drop further. So for instance, if inflation was at 2%, then the maximum increase would be 1%. If inflation was at 1%, maximum increase would be 0.5%. If there is no inflation or negative inflation, then there would be no increase at all. Now, there is a way for property owners to increase if they're below market. The City Council in the City of Bell Gardens is one of the few that have this provision, along with the City of Inglewood. So if rent charged for a unit is below 80% of the local market rate, property owners may apply for an additional 3% increase. So right now, 1.9, if the owners get approved, then you could be at 3 plus 1.9, which would be 4.9% total. And I'll give you some numbers as to how many people have applied for that. And again, this is based on the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's small market rents. And the reason we wanted to do this is because LA County, of course, has a more inflated rent. So we wanted to look at the national average. And again, a property owner must apply. There's an application that staff has for this. It's a very simple application. It's a couple of pages with information from the tenants. And if approved, again, that rent right now, as it stands, could be at 4.9% increase. This shows the HUD rents for Bell Gardens. And this changes every year. So as of October 1st of 2023, the fair market rents nationally average what you see here. So a studio unit, or what's called an efficiency unit, $1,460. 80% of that is $1,168, which means if a property owner is below that $1,168, they can apply for that additional 3% and so forth. It goes up from a studio unit to a 4-bedroom unit. There's also allowable pass-throughs through your ordinance. Capital improvements. So if there's circumstances where the owners have to make an improvement to the property, and again, they apply for this, and staff then looks at it to see if this is qualified through this ordinance. And a lot of things that could happen is, for instance, if there's a catastrophe that happens, and now all of a sudden the unit has to be fixed because of a natural disaster or so forth. It doesn't talk about regular maintenance things. So things like painting that you have to keep up with your unit may not qualify under this. But again, it's on a case-by-case basis. This allows the property owners to pass up to 50% of eligible property improvement costs to the tenants. It has to be shown as a separate line item. It's separate from the rent, along with a clear end date of that amortization period, which the City Council decided was going to be at least 5 years. And within that 5 years, it can't be more than 5% per year. So we don't want the tenant, again, to be gouged with a huge amount because of the capital improvement costs. So keeping that in mind, it's amortized over 5 years at 5% max. Rental registry fees can also be passed on to the tenant. And again, we're saying in your ordinance they can be. The property owner does not have to, but they have that option. To pass up to 50% of that over a 12-month period. So in this case, your $156 unit amounts to $6.50 per tenant per month. Now the cost study that was required by this ordinance in order to implement it, it went through an extensive RFP process. City Council selected a firm called Revenue and Cost Specialists. They completed the study, and through this study, they interviewed several cities with rent stabilization programs, covering staffing duties, registry protocols, software needs, and startup issues. RCS analyzed also the city data and fees, and looked at our existing staffing levels. And then on September 25th of last year, the cost study was presented to the City Council with two options. There is a minimum base level staffing option at $126 a unit. And then there is the best practices staffing at $156 a unit. Now, keeping in mind that the City Council wanted to make sure this was the most efficient program available, where property owners and tenants did not have to wait around, 4 to 6 weeks to get an answer on an application. We wanted to make sure we had enough staffing to be able to respond quickly. So that's why that best practices was selected. Keeping in mind, though, it's going to take some time to get there, 12 to 18 months, because we don't have that staffing. Tonight, under your consent calendar, you approved an item to be able to bring forward those positions. So now we're going to be able to bring those and float them out there so people can apply. And hopefully, as we're going through that process, within the next 3 to 4 months, we'll have people on board to be able to take on those additional duties. We've also already started the software process. So last year, you selected Citizen Serve, also known as Online Solutions, to create a permit tracking system, a land use management system. That takes into account the rental registry software as well. So that's already in the move. So the R-STEP program implementation, so far here's what we've had. We've got several forms. There's the property registration form. So far, the number of properties that have registered, 1,100. Now, keeping in mind that that registration started a year ago, started even before we had the rental registry. So there were already applications in place even before the fees had been collected. So when you look at that asterisk, this amounts to approximately 4,400 units, because the majority of the applications that we receive are 4-unit properties. Also keeping in mind, you're not going to collect all those fees because there's several of those that are also owner-occupied. So if you recall, your ordinance exempts or waives the fee for those 4-unit properties that are owner-occupied. The tenant rent increase contest form, so in other words, these are applications where a tenant says, hey, it's unfair, the owner is increasing the rent more than they're supposed to. We've had 25 of those applications come in. The below market, this is what we were just talking about, that additional 3%. We've had 187 applications submitted, and 153 have already been processed. The fair return petitions, we've only had one of those, and that's currently in process. No capital improvement petitions yet. So here's a rent comparison. What we've done on our staff, Ms. Veronica Jaramillo and our office assistant, Rosario Quirarte, we've looked at different cities. Our city attorney, also Norma Tavares, has helped us with this. So we looked at the county, for instance. We looked at comparison to the city of Bell Gardens. We looked at Baldwin Park, Inglewood, Santa Ana, Cudahy, Culver City, and state law also. So if you look at this, you'll see, for instance, yes, Bell Gardens is at 50% of CPI or 4%, whichever is lower, no floor. Baldwin Park is completely tied to the CPI, 5% max, no less than 1% though. So the minimum Baldwin Park can ever charge is 1%, or I should say landlords in Baldwin Park. Inglewood bases it on the number of units. So 5 units or more, 3%, or CPI, that's full CPI, whichever is greater. And then if it's 4 units or less, it's 5% plus CPI, but a maximum of 10%. Santa Ana, as you see here, is also tied to 80% of the CPI. So we're at 50%, Inglewood is at 100%, Santa Ana is at 80%, or 3%, whichever is less. Cudahy, also tied 100% to CPI, so theirs is 3% maximum. However, if CPI is 0 or less, then no increase is allowed. So a 0 floor also like Bell Gardens. Culver City, tied 100% to the CPI, 5% maximum. If CPI falls below 2%, then the minimum increase is 2%. And that CPI for Culver City is updated on a monthly base. County of LA, as some of the speakers were saying, 4%, and that's based from January 1st through June 30th of 2024 of this year. Thereafter, it's tied to the CPI, which has made or has a maximum of 8% and a minimum of 2%. State law, 5% plus CPI. So 5% minimum plus whatever the CPI is, but no more than 10%, and also one time a year. So now let's go to the maximum allowable rent increase. In comparison to all these other cities, cities' annual rent increase is the lowest of the cities survey. However, keep in mind that we also have that 3% catch-up provision for below fair market. And again, except for Inglewood, cities survey do not have this feature. Now let's look at the rental registry fees. Bell Gardens is at 156, Inglewood 184. Now I'm looking at Baldwin Park, $28 per unit. After doing our research, what we found out is Baldwin Park is hands-off. They're not providing the service that the City of Bell Gardens and others are providing. They're a reactive enforcement. So they're not giving people applications, they're not allowing people to submit and so forth. They're allowing the property owners and the tenants to figure it out on their own. All they're doing is saying, here's the law. There's one staff member that Baldwin Park has for a population of 77,000. So again, what the City of Bell Gardens wanted was a proactive, efficient program that would be responsive to the needs of both the tenants and the landlords. So that's the difference in the fee. And again, if you look at Santa Ana, it's $100 per unit. Cudahy, no fees are being collected at this time. They're working on their cost study. So they're going to come back with a fee. Culver City, $167 per unit. The County of LA is $30 partially covered, just cause only units, and $90 for fully covered that are subject to rent control and eviction protections. And state law does not have one, so that's not applicable for state law. So annual rental registration fee, we believe, is within the range of other cities when you look at the average. To date, the city has collected over $375,000 in fees. The program budget is $1,020,968 based on what you had approved last year. We're getting to that point of collecting. I mean, when you look at this, $375,000, and we're only here in February. So within a month, we've already collected that much. So landlords are coming in and paying. And when you look at all the units, we don't see getting to that 12 to 18 month period as a problem. We think we're going to be able to collect all of those fees since we're already at about a quarter of it. So any costs to operate the RCIP program that are not covered by registration fees are impacting the general fund. So if we do not collect these fees, then your general fund is paying for that. The other thing that we wanted to look at was the median income, because this was brought up several times, saying that the City of Bell Gardens is a low-income community. When you look at all the cities that we compared, we're in line with like Cudahy. Cudahy is approximately 49,500. We're at 53,900. Other cities like Baldwin Park, 114,000. Inglewood, 67,000. Santa Ana, 84,000. The county median income is 83,000, and then state, when you look at the state overall, close to 92,000. So we are on the lower end of incomes. Property cost increases. Again, this is something that your speakers tonight here in the public brought up to you. Property owners typically pay water and trash bills. The other utilities, gas bill, electric bill, are typically the responsibility of the tenant. When you look at increases over the past 3 years, yes, water rates have increased approximately 23% a year, trash rates about 8%, and property taxes in general about 2%. So this is what property owners have expressed concern about. When their city manager and myself had met with some of these landlords, that was what was coming up, and that's, I think, what you heard tonight as well. And so they feel that because of their increases, that they're too restrictive. Right now, the increase at 1.9% to allow them to be able to maintain their properties in habitable condition. But keep in mind that habitable condition was never something that they should not be doing. They should be doing that regardless. So every property has to be in habitable condition. So in conclusion, we're here tonight because staff is requesting direction. Based on the comments that you've received from the public and the staff has received, we've been directed to put together this update, bring it to you for direction. You can either give direction to amend the ordinance or leave it as it is. That's what we're looking for. Now, based on the stakeholder testimony and feedback, Again, you have that option from what you heard tonight. And in amending, we could also look at clarifying provisions to the ordinance. Maybe make them, if some people don't understand something, maybe rewording some of that language. Any amendment would require City Council direction and approval. And the changes may include modifying the rent increase limit to reflect the change in CPI. In other words, go to 80% of CPI or 100% of CPI, or leave it as it is. Also, looking at current economic conditions, the current CPI. So all in all, we're here to ask you for direction. And again, your direction could be receive and file, leave as is, or staff, we'd like you to take a look at amending portions of the ordinance and come back with a recommendation. So that concludes my report. If there's any questions, myself and Veronica are here to answer them. Thank you.
Does any member, thank you so much for that, Director Romo. Does any member of the council have any questions or comments?
I do have a few questions. So just to clarify, as of right now, for the rental registry fee, you guys have collected a little over $300,000. It's allocated for $100,000. So like mentioned, if the landlords per se do not file the rent registry and we don't meet that threshold, therefore the general fund will be at a deficit because the city will have to provide those funds for the allocated positions. Is that correct?
The City Council appropriated, well, I'm not sure if, maybe I'll ask our City Manager and Finance Director if the money has been appropriated, but I know they gave direction to say we would have a budget of $1,020,968 for this program. And the idea was that eventually that budget would be covered entirely by the rental registration fees.
If it's not?
So if, Councilmember Sanchez, so I think what you're asking is, if we've collected 300 and let's say 350,000, I forget the exact number, and we're anticipating costs of up to $1 million, the difference would be funded by the general fund. I think the counter to that is we did understand, I think when we started this, that it was going to take us somewhere in the, maybe as much as 18 to 24 months to fully have compliance with the fee that's paid. So for practical purposes, in the long term, the short answer is yes, the general fund would cover the difference. Our goal will be to strike a balance there between the actual revenues that come in and the actual costs.
And at the time of the ordinance, what was the purpose of the 50% of CPI?
I can answer for the Community Development Director. I think at the time CPI was at a historical high. It was at around 8%. And with I don't think there was any end in sight necessarily at that time with supply chain shortages. COVID was still ending. And I think that half of inflation at the time, which was about 4%, seemed to be a number that you would kind of see out there, I guess, in the rent control arena at the time. And so any number different from that looked like it may not provide, I think, enough protection for the tenants at the time.
So based on the report, it states that the annual rent increase of 50% of CPI or 4%, and then we would look at CPI ending in April of each year. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilmember.
So depending what CPI is this year, we can go ahead and look if there needs to be any type of modification at that time?
Yes, because the CPI information, I think for April probably isn't put out until around July, August timeframe. Is that right, Gus?
It comes out April 1st, but it does not become effective until November 1st.
That's based on our ordinance, the November 1st.
Correct.
No further questions at this time. Thank you.
Any other members of the council have any questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Move to receive and file.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion of Mayor Pro Tem Barcena and a second by Councilwoman Gomez. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Gomez?
Yes.
Councilmember Pulido is still absent. Councilmember Sanchez?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Barcena?
Yes.
And Mayor Chavez?
Yes. We will now move on to council member and successor agency comments, starting off with Councilwoman Gomez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing all of your thoughts and your comments. I understand that this is a very difficult situation for everyone. I don't believe that we've given enough time for this ordinance to fully flesh out, to see its impact on the community. You know, as Councilwoman Sanchez said, there is an opportunity to look at future CPI and see what that looks like. I understand that, you know, the CPI was set at a time when inflation was at a much different level than it is now. And I think that there's always room for review. There's always a time for review, and there's always room for improvement. I don't think right now is that time. But again, it's something that is still in the forefront of all of our concerns, and I think that's something that we can look at again. With that said, I do want to again express thanks to our city staff for the work that they've done. I do think that we need to really clarify what the ordinance is, do a lot more outreach to people, to landlords, and to residents, to make sure that they completely understand all of the tools that are available to them, so that they can get a fair return, so that landlords can get a fair return on their investment, and so that tenants can also avail themselves of protections for themselves. Thank you.
Moving on to Councilwoman Sanchez.
I appreciate everybody being here tonight, you know, vocalizing your concerns regardless on what side it is. I think that it's about being equitable, right? I've lived in Bell Gardens my entire life. I didn't move away to college for a few years and then come back. This is my home. This is where I've lived my entire life. My family has been here for 50 years, both on the renter side and also as homeowners. Not landlords, but homeowners, right? And I know landlords as well. I wish that, you know, things could be different and that it could be more equitable for everybody. That's why I asked the questions that I asked. And I want to see this city thrive, right? I want to be able to maintain high quality housing for everybody, foster the small businesses, the mom and pop landlords, because that's really important, to elevate our community as a whole. Currently, the way the situation is, I don't see that happening. But unfortunately, I'm one of 5 people. And so I'm hoping that we can revisit this in April when CPI comes out again to see what's going to be the best for everybody as a whole. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Barson.
First off, I want to thank the staff for preparing the report. I know this is not an easy report to work on when we're going full throttle with other projects that are extremely, extremely busy. Nevertheless, I appreciate the fact that you took a moment to put all this information together. One of the biggest issues I see is there's a lot of confusion out there. I appreciate the entire process that took about 2 years to come up with this ordinance and all of the considerations, not only to the tenants, but to the property owners. And what do I mean by that? Well, as we just learned right now, is that in November is when the new CPI kicked in, right? What does that mean? That literally means that if you're a property owner and you know the ordinance and you understand what's going on, you could potentially raise your rent not only by the 4% cap, which applied before November, but if you have capital improvements projects, that's an additional 5%. You add that together, that's 9%. And if you happen to be a property owner who is also below the 80th percentile, that's an additional 3%. Now, I do have a question for our community development director. But community development director, do you know if, I mean, that added up to about 12%, I think, altogether. But do you know if a property owner would actually be able to raise the rent 12%? I mean, because based on our ordinance, it looks that way, but can you clarify?
My understanding is that they cannot go above state law.
Okay,
So
which is
state
10.
law is at 10%.
It's 10%.
Yes.
Okay, well, nevertheless, I think my point is clear that this notion that we're not here to support property owners, please be careful who's sharing that information with you, because me being part of this rent control ad hoc committee for over 2 years and sitting side by side with property owners and real estate agents, we made sure that we included protections for you that are designed to keep you afloat, that are designed so that if you're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars improving your properties, you're also able to pass on about 50% of that to your tenants. Now, you will have to work with the city, because that's the whole point of the rent control ordinance. But I think, I hope that you can see with this presentation that this council has goodwill, and the council that was here before, about a year ago when we voted to approve this ordinance in the way that it was presented, had their best intentions in mind, and we continue to do that, and we hope that we find better ways to continue to serve you in the future. Again, thank you, staff, for providing this. I think it was a very clarifying presentation, and I want to thank the council for all the work that they do and their support.
Thank you so much for that. As for my comments, I want to echo the sentiments of all my colleagues. Thank you to everybody who came out and voiced your concerns. It's interesting to once again get a refresher of the rent stabilization ordinance along with the rent registry that we passed not too long ago. I understand, and believe me, a lot of landlords, a lot of tenants, today, even prior to the meeting, upwards of 10 to 15 different comments were coming in from both renters, landlords, and your concerns. Again, thank you to staff. Really appreciate the presentation. And I feel, to echo Mayor Pro Tem Barcena's point, I feel that there is a lot of miscommunication or confusion in regards to this ordinance. I'm proud to say that our community has made history with rent stabilization. If you look at the other cities listed, we're one of the most needed community in terms of rent stabilization. I was doing the math in terms of how much rent would be allowed per unit if you had, for example, a studio or a one bedroom, let's just say a one bedroom. Because we have that 80% local market rate component, if you're charging $1,320 for a one bedroom, you're allowed to raise upwards of 4.9%, correct? If you submit the application. What would be a reason that a person would get rejected, even if they're under the 80% threshold?
If they're under the 80%, if they've already raised the rent during that year, then they would not qualify. But if, because you're only allowed to raise the rent one time a year.
When I've talked to landlords and property owners, this ordinance wasn't meant to attack or affect direct mom and pop landlords. If you look at all the other ordinances that are passed, most, if not all of them, don't have a component where there's protections for mom and pop landlords. There's exceptions if your rent is low. I ask landlords and property owners back, how much is justified to raise from 1 month to the next? Right? We talk about wages, we talk about income for our folks. The median income in Bell Gardens is $50,000, $60,000 at most, right? And we as a council, we as a body, we have to consistently reflect on that data that's available of the people that we represent. So again, really appreciate everybody who came out, really appreciate everyone's comments. We're not gonna get it perfect. Believe me, it's not easy, but again, I really appreciate everyone coming out, voicing your opinions. Thank you to Councilwoman Sanchez as well for sharing your concerns, and along with Councilwoman Gomez and City Manager Mike and everyone else. With that said, that will conclude my comments, and I'll go ahead and, if there's no objection by the members of the City Council, I will now adjourn the City Council Successor Agency Joint Meeting at 8:40 p.m.